The academy was formed largely from the Science Association of Nigeria. They set up a committee of fellows of the Science Association of Nigeria, and it was that committee that reported back to the body of fellows of the Science Association of Nigeria. And in reporting back, they actually selected about 45 people, scientists at that time, who they thought should be foundation members of this organization. And so they were set up, and the academy was inaugurated on the 8th of January 1977.
Well, the impetus was simply the recognition that apart from the Nigerian Science Association, which was the only forum where scientists met, that you needed a higher body, an honor society, as you have in most nations, Britain, US, Japan, China, everywhere, and also Russia.
Nigeria had a very strong capacity in science from its early history. When the country became independent in 1960, all the efforts of the scientific efforts within the country in building capacity for science were quite front burner. And it became necessary that for Nigeria to move ahead, it was essential that it set up its own academy. Many science societies had evolved. In fact, a major Nigerian science association was formed that involved different disciplines, and the Nigerian Science Association were pushing that there was a need for the formation of an academy. And for that to happen, the Nigerian Science Association set up a committee that involved the establishment of fellows of the Science Association of Nigeria. And the fellowship was charged with the responsibility of working to create an academy for Nigeria.
Every nation in the world tries to establish academy of sciences, academy of medicine, academy of different areas of development, because inside the academy you have some of the best people in their different fields.
The necessity to have a slightly or a higher body than Science Association of Nigeria, from which the academy sprang up.
The necessity to have a body that will speak for science in the country, will recognize excellence, promote excellence, and support scientific research for the benefit of the whole country.
People like Awele Madremezia, people like Frank Okoli, who were part of the foundation members. But if you really want to go further back, even the setting up the Science Association of Nigeria, there were antecedents to that. There were more prominent scientists like Professor Eni Njogu, the first professor of botany, Professor Nabamiro, and those. They were the ones who really initiated the Science Association of Nigeria. And out of that now came the Nigerian Academy of Science.
I think if we must give credit to an individual, that credit will belong to Awele Madremezia. Because while we all shared the view that there ought to be an academy, most of us did the talking, but he was the one who did the paperwork that led to the establishment of the academy.
Well, it was, as I mentioned, the Nigerian Science Association was a major player, and the Society of Fellows of the Nigerian Science Association. And since the academy had been formed, and we've been trying to seek greater interaction.
Most of it, actually, if I recall rightly, were much younger scientists who are themselves not even nominated as fellows. They sat together and they carefully selected the first group of fellows whom they consider to be the best scientists, medical people, engineers from the whole of Nigeria. And their work was commendable because they did their best to identify who they think should be in this list of first fellows of the Academy of Science.
There were about 48 or so foundation fellows, of which Professor Yenuga, who was at that time Professor of Animal Science in the University of Ibadan, was the foundation president of the Academy.
Well, there were very many people, principally all the fellows of the then Nigerian Science Association formed the nucleus of the Nigerian Academy of Science.
Some of the main constraints were set up by the Academy itself. First, it restricted its number to 100 people. It was never to be more than 100. By the time I joined the Academy, by the time I became a fellow, there were not up to 96 people, there were 70-something people when I became a fellow. So having a small number of people was a major constraint.
My early days in the Academy were actually challenging, and because I had my work in the university to perform and I had my work with the teaching hospital to perform, but anyway I managed to handle the responsibilities of the honorary secretary.
We're all inexperienced in how academies are run, but we learned from the way the Royal Society was run, the way the American National Academy of Science was run. We used it as a model, encouraging regular meetings, regular colloquia, and regular lectures and so on. And that way built up the consciousness both of scientists and then of the society.
The early days of the Academy were tough. First, we didn't have any financial support from government, which was major. The US Academy was chartered by the government, and they were supported, even though they were not giving money directly.
It was a lot of sacrifice. But the reason why we did it is because every good nation in the world has academies for different developmental purposes. So it was a lot of sacrifice for the members to keep the academy going, to publish journals, and to encourage younger people to develop themselves.
It was a new body, a new academy, and it sought wide acceptance within and without the country. And it was supposed to be modeled after various Academy of Sciences in advanced countries. Over the years now, it has continued to grow and to be an acceptable body internationally for the purpose of science in Nigeria.
Well, the challenges were first the acceptance by the Nigerian society and recognition of the impact of the Nigerian Academy of Science, and then what the Nigerian Academy of Science was up to until after very many years that people started to see that well, there is need to support this academy in view of the enormous assignment that it has thrust upon itself.
A defining moment, in my opinion, in the life of the Nigerian Academy of Science was when we started a partnership with the US National Science Academies. Academies got involved in projects, health projects, water projects, and international projects through the US National Science Academy. Capacity building, started training staff, we started having programs officers and doing programs. Very many trips were organized for some of the fellows in leadership and so on. And at the same time, this was going on in other African countries, and we could be exchanging ideas. So the academy has never been the same again since then.
First, the defining moment was that formation year. Started like a small group and grew to become a very big group with very many fellows.
The academy has had certain moments, milestones over the years that have defined it. One being when it's been able to host big international conferences. The academy also ultimately, I think, had another defining moment when it began to win grants outside of that ASADI program in itself, when it became competent enough to be able to win grants from diverse international funders over the years and even local funders. So I think increasingly also locally there's been greater recognition.
I think one can easily underscore the association with the U.S. National Academy and the ASADI program as one of the most defining moments of the academy, because things have changed dramatically since that time.
What I would call the defining moments was when the academy was eminently relevant to the society. And it was because we had good funding.
There have been several times that we have intervened in the affairs of the nation in regards to science. For example, I chaired a committee of the academy that made an input to the Federal Ministry of Science and Technology that led to the development of a science policy for Nigeria.
Well, the academy had been successful, I would say, despite the fact that we've had a very, very tough and turbulent early growth. Fellows are elected and they still carry on their own respective duties, but the academy had to maintain an office.
When the Academy of Science has grown, it has continued to grow. It hasn't failed at any time, despite the fact that it didn't have much financial support from the outside. So I think that's one major thing that one should commend the members who have continued to attend meetings, continue to make development, continue to encourage the younger generation of scientists to grow. I think more recently they've achieved quite a lot. We have land in Abuja, and I'm sure sooner than later there will be a very nice academic building in Abuja where conferences can take place, international groups can be invited to develop, to discuss issues of importance to Nigeria.
The academy has increasingly been relied on by the government to look at some scientific problems in the country. 4 years ago, the federal government engaged the academy to accredit all the scientific parastatals in this country, and the job was carried out efficiently, and we were all very proud of the outcome of that exercise.
The gathering of the initial 45 fellows who voluntarily decided to establish the academy without any support from any government.
Well, the National Academy of Science is the foremost scientific body in the country, and the academy has been making efforts, because it's going to be 40 years, to gain a charter which will be endorsed by the government, and that is in process and almost through now. But various heads of governments have recognized the functions of the academy by attending some of the meetings, granting audience, and also granting some funds for activities.
The defining moment of National Academy of Science was when the academy started getting recognition by people in government to contribute to policy direction, and being recognized at the president, at the level of the Nigerian president and the ministers, to make contribution to the growth of science and policies that will affect national development is, one will say, a defining moment for the academy.
I'm glad to say I've been privileged to be part of that history in getting at least a piece of land here in Abuja for the academy, for a secretariat. I came more as a facilitator in obtaining the documents for the landed property, and I'm glad to say that that has materialized.
So to me, I will really say we have not really had a defining moment yet. I will say that until we begin to change our orientation and make the society the focus of our science, until that time we're not going to get a defining moment. That's my feeling. When we're looking at the problems around our area and using science to solve those problems, that's when we get our defining moment. The 40th anniversary is an opportunity for us to look back and see how well we have done, and then to look forward in the next 40 years and see where we want to be. I want the Science Academy of Nigeria to be the one that influences the policy of the government. In the next 40 years, we should be able to say that no government in Africa will do without asking the scientists for direction on what to do about the policy for the people.
The appointment of President of NAS as member of the Presidential Advisory Council on Science and Technology in Nigeria, that was done by President Yusuf Yabasingbe. And because I was the first president to be member of that, President of the Academy to be member of that Presidential Advisory Council. Of course, we know that is one of the offshoots of that effort was the National Merit Award, upgrading National Merit Award efforts for academia in science.
By then I had become a professor, doing my work, and one of those older people said, "Hey, I think you should bring you are more than qualified." I was already a professor for about 10 years then, and I think you should be. I said, "Me? I didn't even say this. Give me a." That's one thing led to the other, and suddenly I became a fellow.
Somebody nominated me without even telling me, but it got to the point of having to submit the CV and so on that he now let me know what he was doing. All the moments in Academy of Science have been memorable. Every activity we have has been memorable because we're really going forward, we're moving forward.
Everybody was keen to be in the highest, to be recognized as being in the highest echelon of scientists in the country. Being the president of the academy for 2 to 3 years, so it's been the proudest moment.
I know that all honors come from God. That's my belief. Because here was something I wasn't, looking for, and just came my way. And I now believed also that when God honors you, He wants you to serve. And that was why I did not hesitate to serve in all the capacities that I served in the academy.
By the very nature of the academy, I don't think anybody goes to say, I want to join the academy. You are usually invited. In my own case, Professor Umechile, and to a lesser extent, Professor J.O.C.S. were the ones who said, look, we are going to nominate you to be elected into the fellowship, and I accepted.
It is the apex honored society in science. It will be the aspiration of every scientist to want to belong to that, at that level of eminence. It's a recognition of one's own eminence and one's own contribution to the development of science, to the development of one's discipline, and for the opportunity to be able to use this for the development of one's own country. So it's been a privilege and an honor to wanting to be in the academy. And when I was elected into the academy in 1987, I felt very proud and very given an opportunity of this recognition to continue to do.
My proudest moment was sitting in my office receiving a letter to say that I was selected as one of the Foundation's Fellow of the Nigerian Academy of Science. This was in the 1970s. I was a young scientist. I was not even expecting it, but it happened.
What inspired me to join the Academy of Science is the academic excellence of the organization and its outreach to members all over the country. I obviously found that there are many mentors in the organization whom I was able to relate with and communicate. It has been a very privileged time for me.
I was elected in 2004 and I was, like I said, very proud to be elected, and since then I've been trying to contribute my own little quota for the advancement of the academy.
You don't join the Nigerian Academy of Science. A fellow will nominate you, having recognized the quality of your work, the scholarship that was evident in your research output, and nominate you. And this nomination was supported by another fellow and two other fellows, let me say, supported by 3 other fellows. And then the nomination was put before the General Assembly of the Academy, and the entire fellowship voted for you to be elected as a fellow. And if you didn't make the mark scoring 50% of the votes, you would not be elected. So it was a kind of peer review exercise.
I wanted to join because having achieved my career progression in the university and then knowing that the Academy of Science is also a higher body where I can contribute to the development of science in the country.
Nigerian Academy of Science is the ultimate professional organization in Nigeria. It's the epitome of achievement in science. So the dream of every young scientist is how to become a fellow one day. And so when I was elected a fellow a few years ago, as one of the youngest members of the Academy of Science, I was quite proud and I was quite happy that I was elected.
Test is a mark of honor and it's a mark of recognition. And really amongst your peers, everybody wants to be recognized for the work he has done. And so everybody aspires to become a fellow of the academy. And it is one of the aspirations of any scientist to become a member of the fellow of this National Academy.
I'm handling fellowship management, and I've been in academy for more than 30 years. It's not been easy because there have been challenges in the academy. Academy has made progress because in the past we have less than 100 fellows, but now we have more than 230 fellows. So that shows that the academy is making progress. In the area of my work, it's not been easy because in the past we use manual typewriters, but now we now have a computer that helps to improve my work.
With a more robust relationship with the Federal Institute of Industrial Research and leveraging on the mandate of the Institute, I can see NAS being a strong force in policy statements in Nigeria. And having more voice in governance, because this is the time that NAS needs to be more visible, especially in job creation. Looking strictly into the curriculum of the university, entrenching entrepreneurship skill, changing the orientation of the youth. I want to congratulate the Academy for this landmark achievement of 14 years. It's not easy to bring so many eggheads together and run a very viable academy like that. We are doing, the academy is doing very well. I'm wishing them all the best, and proposing that with this 40th anniversary, we are looking at possibility of stronger advocacy with government and also the university, trying to bridge the gap between the university, industry, and government. They are the only one that can achieve the synergy of the triple helix, that is government, academia, and the industry. With a strong advocacy, we will be able to achieve industrialization of the country, and various programs that has been in place for that success can be leveraged on this strong advocacy.
I came across the Nigerian Academy of Science around 2006, where we started a collaboration known as the Faculty of the Future. This was a social initiative that's focused on educating female graduates and encouraging them through grants, significantly sized grants, to pursue higher studies outside the country. The NAS supported us by providing fellows who, as you know, have a lot of brain power, to help screen suitable candidates, review their thesis, their materials, and ensure that we selected the right people. I'm very proud that in the last 10 years, Schlumberger and the NAS, collaborating on this program, have been able to sponsor over 90 female lecturers in more than 33 universities in Nigeria, with several programs up to PhD around the world. That's a fantastic success story, especially because most of these candidates come back to Nigeria and contribute in their original universities.
Vatafum has been associating with this academy for probably the last 10 years or more. We are really proud of the academy for what she has been doing the last 40 years.
We've had several workshops that we've hosted that have been in collaboration with the Academy of Science. We've had capacity development for early career women in science. That held last year, 2016. NAS was heavily involved and executed the project, the workshop together. In fact, almost all the workshops in the Nigerian Academy at times have been in collaboration with NAS.
The major objective of NAS is to ensure that the benefits of science and technology are passed down or are enjoyed by Nigerians.
The role of the academy in the present day in Nigeria is to try and address problems that can be solved through science and technology.
What you need is not necessarily all of the time individual consultants to advise you. Neither are government agencies by themselves alone sufficient. You need an independent, competent and unbiased advisor like the academy filling in that role, so that when you just want to know what the science says and what the science advises without any strings attached, the academy would be the organization to call in.
The academy is making a lot of effort now, much more effort than it used to do in setting or trying to influence policy. It's mostly policy.
I would say research. We need increased funding for research If not, we lose our relevance.
The role is clear. We ought to lead, be in the vanguard that points Nigeria into the ways of science and to use science for the development of the nation.
Well, the role of the Nigerian Academy of Science is an apex scientific body, honored society. And its role is supposed to see to the development of science and the application of science, improving the human condition, improving the capacity, training many more Nigerians and serving the government.
NAS continues to fight for the development of science.
It's quite extensive. So many other academies have spun off from the Nigerian Academy of Science. Then secondly, the government of the day recognizes the Nigerian Academy as the epitome of science in this country.
Recognize, promote, and encourage excellence, and to make sure that the fruit of scientific and technological research are available for the benefit of mankind.
The National Academy of Science has been involved with a lot of things happening on in the country. For example, during the Ebola crisis, the Academy played a lot of advisory role and also was quite involved in also combating that.
Nigeria's Academy of Science has been able to make some impact that have contributed immensely to some policy direction, which is affecting technological development and innovation, as well as science education in Nigeria.
Once we get the identity right as well, and therefore get the governance right, and very importantly, its staffing right. Once all of those things are properly addressed, the Academy will become a much more effective organization, and in fact much more cherished and needed in the Nigerian society.
Influence Nigeria culturally to become a culture that respects science and uses science.
The Academy has been able to draw government's attention to many problems that are of national interest.
It has to maintain standards. If the standards are secured, and this is something that begins from the people that you get, that you elect into the academy. If there are strict procedures and processes and they are followed, then I think the academy has a bright future.
Each of us should endeavor to have the young ones which will mentor, and so that they will look up to us and will be sure that when we pass on, which will inevitably occur, we have younger ones to hand over the baton.
Our own government has to support the activities of the Nigerian Academy of Science, just as it is done all over the world.
I see NAS getting bigger. I see NAS getting more and more recognized as a source for evidence so that some proper policies can be put in place, especially policies that require understanding the right science behind it.
In the next 40 years, I want to see Nigerians attaining Nobel Prize in science and its many applications.
To develop science, to develop new vaccines, to develop, solve agricultural problems, for example, where there are things are not going well, needs scientific support, it needs encouragement. Sometimes these people risk their life because if they're not careful, they can even pick diseases from where they're trying to solve problems. So our own government has to realize the importance of scientists, engineers, and so forth, give them the financial support that they need, not only to continue to work, but as I said, more importantly, to develop, help the younger people to grow.
The next 40 years should be better. The academy should aim to institute a very high level of scientific practice in Nigeria, disseminate science, oversee scientific activities, whether in the academia or in the private sector, for the advancement of Nigeria in general.
Puts itself in a position that it can provide evidence-based policy to the government.
NAS can be involved in more of activities that will improve science in the country. For example, the academy can be involved in accrediting institutions.
It is my hope and desire that in the next 40 years, Nigerian Academy of Science will be a well-funded, well-organized establishment that will be able to contribute to all aspects of national development, because there can never be any national development without scientific development.
I think we need more funding. I would like to see an endowed academy that can award fellowships to younger scientists, postdocs,